throughout our childhood was Marley, and she was Cuban. So after college, she was getting divorced, and she came back from Wisconsin to sleep on her mother's couch in New Jersey. Jobless, divorced, very unhappy. So the first week she was back, I went to visit her in New Jersey where we grew up, and I noticed on the doormat outside her mother's house there were plátanos, and plátanos are green bananas. And so I walked in and I said hi to her mother, Mirna. I'm like, why are there these green bananas on your doormat? Do you want me to bring them in? And she's like, ay, chica, no. Don't touch those, because those are there from the neighbor. She's trying to put a bad spell on me. But don't worry, I have the solution. I got up at 6 o'clock this morning and I peed on her doormat. And so that basically counteracted the spell. And so I'm like, all right. So Marley and her mother and I are lamenting the fact that she's, getting divorced and very unhappy to be back in New Jersey, like everybody should be. And so her mother, again, is like, oh, don't worry about it. I've got the solution. We're going to see Umberto. And so they tell me quickly that Umberto is a Santero, which is like black magic fortuneteller. And it normally takes a year to get an appointment with Umberto, but she pulled some strings and they're going on Saturday. And he's gonna give her a fortune and he can change her life. He can transform whatever's going on, he can change it for you. So I ask if I can go. If I pay the $60, can I go Saturday too? And she's like, yeah, sure. So Saturday we get some cafe con leches for the road, and we head there. We get out into this urban area, nondescript apartment building with kids playing like stickball. So I walk into this apartment, and the smell hits me. It smells like urine and death and garbage. And I'm looking around, and there's nothing but a couch, which we all plop ourselves on, and roaches kind of go scurrying out of it. And there's a parrot, an uncaged parrot, in the middle of the room squawking, and there's bird shit everywhere. And there's two viejas, which are old Cuban women, sitting across from us, and at their feet there's this box that's moving on its own. So Mirna quickly talks to them, and she finds out, like, oh, don't worry, we don't have to wait for them to get their fortunes told. They're here for some serious shit. Like, when we leave, they need to sacrifice that chicken. So now I know what I'm in for. And Marley's like, dude, you wanted to fucking come. And so Mirna goes in to get her fortune told, and I get a glimpse of Umberto, and he's wearing a dirty wife beater and boxer shorts, and he has this Newport hanging out of his mouth, and he's super flamboyant with dyed blonde hair. So while Mirna is getting her fortune told, I and Marley go looking for the bathroom, which has no door, but I'm gonna go anyway. And there's blood splattered everywhere, where apparently he's been sacrificing animals to change her life. And so instead we go pee in an alley and smoke a cigarette. I don't smoke, but it seems like a good idea for the situation. So Mirna is leaving, Marley goes in, and I'm trying to follow what the fortune teller is telling her. But I don't understand, but I speak Spanish. And so her mother's like, oh no, dude, he's speaking in tongues. And don't worry, sometimes he completely falls on the floor and has like a seizure, but it's okay. So she starts crying. Marley's starting to cry, and out of the corner of my eye I see this. And so I'm kind of wondering, but when she's done, she sits back on the couch. Now, a roach crawls over my foot, and I'm like trying to hover my feet above the couch, and my purse is on my lap, and I'm just like, oh, please let me get out of here. But I march into the kitchen, and I sit down, and Umberto is doing tarot cards for me, and roaches are crawling, and he flicks one at me. And he's like, stop being so prissy. These are here to protect you, and you should worry about the demons you can't see. And I'm like, oh, the bird, is the bird out there to protect me too? And he's like, no, that's the devil. You need to know evil before you can understand good. So I'm kind of moved and scared, shitless, but moved nonetheless. And he starts telling me that all my problems centered around the fact that when my mother was pregnant, it's a vulnerable time for a woman because the baby's soul, according to Umberto, enters her. And that leaves her open for bad spirits to also enter her. And so he says that's what happened when I was in her womb. And I almost feel like I'm on the verge of tears now because my mother's schizophrenic, and that kind of explains schizophrenia in his very primitive and very strange terms. And I'm like, how could he have known that? Like, that's pretty odd. And so he says, so you were trapped in her womb for all those 9 months with a bad spirit, and she secretly resents you because she changed because of that pregnancy, and now she's not. And you are fine, but you suffer from depression and dark moods because of the time you spent in the womb with her. with this spirit. And he's like, but don't worry. I know exactly what you need to do. I can change your life. No more dark moods. And I'm like, I can't possibly sacrifice a chicken. Like, it's just not going to happen. And he's like, no, that's not what you need to do. You need to buy as many steaks as you possibly can. You need to wash yourself with the steak from head to toe and drip the blood on you. And then you need to stay there for like 3 hours until it dries and until you smell like death. And that'll be the death of your old life. And then you can shower and it'll all go down the drain and you'll always be happy. So I'm kind of shaken by this. And we get back in the car and I asked Marley, why were you crying? What did he tell you? And she said, I don't know how he could have known this, but he said he knew that right before I got divorced a few months ago, I had an abortion. And the baby's soul was in the room with us. And he said the only way that I could possibly get rid of, like send the baby back to wherever it's supposed to go, would be to sacrifice an animal on its behalf. But Marley's a vegetarian, so she said she knew she couldn't do it. She had the potential to change her life, and she couldn't take it. And so like now, sometimes on days when I'm feeling like dark and depressed, I think like, what if I had done it? Thanks.